Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Happy Wednesday to you all. If you guys are new here, my name is Crystal and welcome to my channel. And I believe today's episode is going to be episode number 11. And today's episode is also going to be different because it's the first episode in which I'm speaking on a victim who is a man. I believe in the first 10 episodes, every victim that I spoke about was a young girl, a female, a woman. So yeah, like I said, I just sit here and I basically talk to you guys, tell you guys a true crime story. So like I said, if you guys are new to my channel, welcome to my channel. Please do not forget to hit that subscribe button. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into today's case. Lorenzen Wright was an NBA player for the Memphis Grizzlies. He went on to have a super successful NBA career. And just 1 year after Lorenzen ended his NBA career and ultimately decided to leave the game for good, Wright was in the headlines again. But for this time, it was for his unfortunate murder. On July 19th, 2012, the police department received a 911 call.
Hi, go through. Georgetown 911, where's your emergency? Hello? 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 Son, I have nothing but gunshots. Hello? Hello?
Lorenzen was married to his wife, Shira Wright, for 13 years. Lorenzen left behind his 6 children, a host of family and friends, and his devoted fans. Lorenzen was honestly considered a hometown hero to many people, and he was also a beloved figure in their community. Lorenzen was a star player at the University of Memphis, and from college, Lorenzen was drafted into the NBA in 1996 as the 7th pick in the first round of the Los Angeles Clippers. And if you guys know nothing about the NBA draft or NFL draft, but I do know that if you get drafted in the first round, it is a huge deal that you are, a great player. So like I said, this was a huge deal for Lorenzen, for Lorenzen's family. He saw this as like a way out so that he can help people struggling around him and, help out around help his family. So most people see it from small hometowns and that don't really have much. They see this as like their ticket or their way out. So backing up a little bit, because I want you guys to understand kind of how old Lorenzen was when he met Shira. So Lorenzen was 16 years old, meaning that he was actually in high school when he met his future wife, Shira. Shira was 21 years old when Lorenzen was 16. She was a good 5 years older than him. But mind you, he's a minor at the time. But that is how old they were when they met. And I looked up a few resources and they say that they met because Shira was the daughter of one of Lorenzen's basketball trainers. So eventually Lorenzen and Shira went off and got married. Once they got married, they had 6 kids together. So basically a basketball team and a substitute on their own. They had a really large family. The couple also had a 7th child, but unfortunately she passed away due to sudden infant death syndrome. After her passing, Lorenzen started a scholarship in her name with the Community Foundation of Greater Memphis. So before ending his NBA career, Lorenzen played for numerous NBA teams, such as the one he was drafted to, Los Angeles Clippers. He played for the Atlanta Hawks, the Sacramento Kings, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. He then ended his career with his hometown, which is the Memphis Grizzlies. Lorenzen's childhood lifelong friend described him to be humble, selfless, and caring. He stated that every time they'd go somewhere, Lorenzen would get stopped and he'd be recognized by people, and he would kindly give the fans autographs. He'd take pictures with them. He never had a problem with fans stopping him. He was just an all-around great, giving, loving guy. So over the course of Lorenzen's 13 years that he played in the NBA, he made a net worth of about $55 million. And unfortunately, by the time Lorenzen was done playing and hung up his basketball shoes, some stated that he was nearly broke. He had 2 very expensive homes, which were actually in the process of being foreclosed on. It was discovered that Lorenzen also had numerous creditors after he and his wife Shira. Lorenzen's good childhood friend, whose name was Michael Gibson, he also stated that another one of Lorenzen's problem per se was that he was a giver. He said that this was I guess, a good thing, but also a bad thing because Lorenzen didn't know how to say no. Someone in his family, someone of the community, one of his friends asks for money or asks for help or asks for support in any way, shape, or form, Lorenzen was there to provide it to them, which is why he kind of said this in turn started to be a problem because Lorenzen was clearly in debt and owed creditors a lot of money. So throughout Shira and Lorenzen's marriage, it was known by few people that Lorenzen had multiple other women on the side and that he would constantly cheat on Shira. But of course, to the public and, distant friends and family members, Lorenzen and Shira's marriage was picture perfect. Due to his constant infidelity and his wife Shira, just not allowing it anymore, after Lorenzen retired, he found himself basically retired, broke, divorced, and now he was living over 100 miles away from his kids, his family, his hometown, which was Memphis. Now he's living 100 miles away in Atlanta. So Lorenzen was not in a good space at all. Now his best friend kind of stated that he was at a point where he just really wanted to turn his life around. Lorenzen told Michael that he actually started to rethink his life and his future. He also stated that he was actually getting back with his ex-wife Shira and that he honestly just truly wanted to be happy again. He stated that being away from Shira and being in such a fast-paced life and away from his family, he just wasn't satisfied and he truly wasn't happy. So fast forward a couple of weeks later, the call that 911 received on July 19th, 2012, which I will play it again here for you guys.
Georgetown 911, where's your emergency? Hello? 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 Don't I have nothing but gunshots. Hello? Hello?
So as you guys heard, no one came to the phone. And since the dispatcher didn't, I guess, really speak to anyone, because of this, the operators did not immediately pursue anything. Even though they assumed that they were hearing gunshots on the other end of the call, they weren't 100% sure that that's what they heard. And of course, when investigators later on started to investigate this case, they did state that those 911 operators in Germantown that received that call originally dropped the ball tremendously. They did not report this call until 9 days later, which is a long time if you're speaking investigation-wise. So like I said, once the Memphis Police Department were eventually notified about this 911 phone call 9 days later, they then traced to where the call was made from and searched the area. And in that area, they found a body in a remote meadow, which in turn is now going to make the investigators' investigation a little bit harder because they're 9 days behind. At this point, whoever killed this person could be anywhere in the world. I mean, in 9 days, you can jump on a flight and be across the world, not the country, like literally the world. So not only were the investigators at a huge disadvantage because the 911 dispatchers didn't relay the message until 9 days later, but they were also at an extremely huge disadvantage due to the environment and the circumstances surrounding the body. Investigators stated that it was over 100 degrees outside at this time, it being in July, which was summertime, which is in the peak, height of hot season. And due to these severe weather conditions, when they did find the body, it was severely decayed. So I'm sure at this point, you guys already know that the body that police officers discovered was indeed the body of Lorenzen Wright. And if you've guessed it, you guys are correct that Lorenzen was actually the one to place that 911 phone call that night. So Lorenzen Wright was murdered on July 12th, 2012. So when investigators began their investigation, obviously starting with the people closest to Lorenzen, his friends, his family, and his ex-wife, Shira. When investigators interviewed Lorenzen's ex-wife, Shira, and the mother of his children, she stated that Lorenzen had actually just left her house that night. She also mentioned that Lorenzen had left her house that night with a box of drugs and a man that she didn't know and had never met before. She stated that Lorenzen told her that he was going to flip something for about $115,000. And when police officers heard this, they originally thought it was a bit sketchy, but then once they started to investigate Lorenzen's financial background and history, they knew that creditors were after him. They knew that both of his homes were in the process of foreclosure, so they didn't think it was super strange or odd that Lorenzen would try to, be involved with an unknown man and carry around a box of drugs. So this wasn't, at this point in the investigation, this theory wasn't too far-fetched just yet. And like I said, since this theory wasn't too far-fetched yet, there became a bit of speculation that Lorenzen somehow could have been caught up with the cartel. Lorenzen's childhood friend Michael also mentioned that he had heard Lorenzen was selling some cars to some drug dealers, and he thought that that was it. He thought that maybe Lorenzen was just down and out on money at this time, and he was kind of just doing anything to get some money, same as what investigators thought. None of this information was confirmed during the investigation, nor once the investigation was complete. So, like I said, this was just speculation and hearsay at this point, but again, none of this was confirmed. So once the autopsy was complete, it was revealed that Lorenzen was shot with 2 different types of shell casings and calibers, meaning that Lorenzen was shot with 2 different types of guns. So being that the investigators had no leads and no tips at this point, Lorenzen's case unfortunately goes cold, but not for too long. So check this part out, guys. 5 years after Lorenzen was murdered, his ex-wife Shira wrote and published a novel which was seemingly based on her life with Lorenzen. This novel was titled Mr. Tell Me Anything. The book was about a character who was a basketball player, and in the book, his name was Mr. Tell Me Anything. This character resembled Lorenzen's actual life, being that he grew up in Mississippi, he moved to Memphis to play basketball, and he went pro, which was exactly how Lorenzen's life unfolded. The book also seemingly tells a real-life story of an unfaithful marriage. This book had characters in it named Miss Honey Blonde and Ride or Die Chick, and the overall basically theme of the book was basically about a bitter and scorned woman who went through a lot with her cheating husband and the multiple women that he would bring into their relationship, basically. So remember, Shira publishes this book 5 years after Lorenzen was murdered. So once people got their hands on this book, they figured out Shira wrote the book. Of course, some investigators picked up the book to read it because, like I said, Lorenzen's case had been cold for 5 years. Shira basically became the talk of the town because of this book. So much so that a local investigator picked up Shira's book, read it, and actually reached out to her to ask if he could have a sit-down discussion with her and about the book. Shira agrees, and I think they met up at a coffee shop or something to talk about the book. And he's an investigator, so of course he's recording the entire conversation. If you guys want to hear what exactly Shira was saying to the investigator when he was sitting down at the coffee shop with her, it was actually really interesting. So I suggest you guys go check it out for yourselves. But if you don't want to, I'm just going to summarize it here for purposes of telling the story. So the investigator began to discuss scenes directly out of the book. He brought up specifically a scene in the book where the wife actually caught the husband in the act of cheating on her with another woman. And the other woman in this scene was referred to as Miss Honey Blonde. So when the wife walks into the room, which we're assuming the wife is Shira, Miss Honey Blonde runs into the bathroom, and the wife, which we're assuming was Shira, runs after her, opens the bathroom door, and proceeds to beat her up. So this investigator also explains that in the novel, Shira's character was fat shamed. She was beaten up multiple times. She contemplated committing suicide because of the numerous infidelities in her marriage to the NBA player. So at this point, after bringing up multiple scenes, to Shira and discussing them with her, the investigator sitting down with her eventually asked, are these actually true? Are you the wife in this book, and is Lorenzen the NBA player in this book, and did these things really actually happen to you? And Shira actually states that yes, these things did actually happen to me, and she willingly admits to them all. In fact, she says that this book was 99% true and based on her life. So if that was the case, that is actually a bit scary too, because she states in the book that the wife was beaten up, which meant that Shira had been abused, she contemplated suicide, and she got in altercations with not only her husband, but her husband's mistresses as well, which, wasn't a good thing at all. Even though people speculated that Shira had something to do with Lorenzen's murder, I still don't think, somebody should have to go through that. We'll get to the rest later on, but those are just my thoughts about, her writing the book and if she did actually go through all of these things. The investigator sitting down with her that's, recording this, like has a wire. He then brings up the topic of Lorenzen.
Do you have any idea who did this, or?
I don't know.
And I gotta ask you this, but I mean, did you have anything to do with his murder or his disappearance?
I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm an author. And the police should find his killer. I'm a minister of the Lord, and I've never been in any type of trouble or anything. I'm a mother, an author, and a wife.
So when asked if she had anything to do with Lorenzen's murder, she technically never said the word no, as you guys just heard in the audio, which is why she kept repeating, like, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm an author, I'm a minister. She just kept repeating, what she was, but never specifically said, did you murder Lorenzen? Once you're an investigator kind of wraps up this conversation, I'm assuming the investigator is just like mind blown, like this is actually crazy. Cher then tells the investigator that she's actually working on a sequel to her book and that the sequel was going to be called The Whole Nine. And the investigator proceeds to ask her if the character in the book, which is Mr. Tell Me Anything, if in this sequel titled The Whole Nine, will this character be murdered? And believe it or not, Cher proceeds to say, yes, he is, which I would have sat there like, this lady did it. Like, I need to figure out how she did it, because there's no way that she is thinking about writing a sequel called The Whole Nine, which I'm sure is going to be like how everything ended, and Mr. Tell Me Anything is going to be murdered in the sequel. Like, I just would have been mind blown, and I'm sure the investigator was as well. So following Lorenzen's murder, Cher actually collected $1 million, and she collected this not because of her title as Lorenzen's ex-wife, but she collected this because of the 6 children that she and Lorenzen had together. So basically this money went to the children, and I'm assuming since they were minors, it obviously went to their caretaker, which was their mother, Shira. And to no one's surprise, less than a year after receiving this money, it was basically all gone, and Shira spent it all, and no one knew on what. Lorenzen's parents were actually questioning, like, is she actually spending this money on the children? Are the children actually in great hands? So due to this, Lorenzen's father took Shira back to court. He wanted to make sure the children were in good hands. He wanted to make sure that the money was being spent well. So Shira and her attorneys had to produce receipts of everything they spent money on, etc., etc. And Lorenzen's father ultimately fights for custody of his children. But unfortunately, Lorenzen's father's attorney couldn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Shira was not taking care of her children properly. And Shira's attorney basically stated that this was just a chance for Lorenzen's father to try and get like his second shot at the money, since all of the money when Lorenzen passed went to Shira. His father didn't receive anything. So this is what Shira's attorney is saying. Out of this, nothing was really, nothing really came about it. Shira still had full custody of her children, and Lorenzen's father actually lost this case. So kind of moving on to other people that investigators spoke to and statements that they made, they actually spoke to Lorenzen's assistant, and she stated that in the years leading up to Lorenzen's death, she could see how angry Shira got over the years. She stated that if Lorenzen didn't answer the phone and he basically like disappeared for a certain amount of time, he stated that Shira would automatically begin to not trust him and to just blow up his phone, which I'm assuming if your spouse has a past of cheating and they're not answering your phone, I mean, I'm assuming that's where your mind is going to go to. So I don't really know how to take this statement per se. I think that any woman would try to blow up their man if they know he has a past of cheating and he's just disappeared. So I kind of took this statement with a grain of salt, but not the next statement that she stated that Shira made. So Lorenzen's assistant then stated that Shira even stated a couple of times when she got so angry at Lorenzen that she would actually kill him if she were to ever catch him cheating again. So Shira actually made this statement so frequent that Lorenzen's assistant went as far as to secretly record the instances in which Shira would say this. His assistant then played the audio for Lorenzen to basically prove to him, like, look at what she's saying. She's saying that if she catches you again, she's gonna kill you. Not only did she play it for Lorenzen, but she also made a copy of the audio and took it to the police department, and they had this audio before Lorenzen was even murdered. So 2 years after Shira's book was published, local authorities in Walnut, Mississippi located the murder weapon in the bottom of a lake that was used to kill Lorenzen. Divers were able to search in the lake for 5 days straight without alerting or tipping off the neighbors. They didn't want anyone knowing that they were searching the lake or why they were searching the lake. So they actually told people that lived in the area around the lake that they were just doing I think they said that they told everyone that they were just doing diving instructions and teaching people how to dive for school reasons. But in reality, they were searching that lake for the gun that was used to murder Lorenzen. And once they, connected the gun to its owner, they traced back the gun to a man named Billy Ray Turner. And this man, Billy, actually turned out to be a deacon at the same church that Shira was a minister at. He also had a landscaping business in which he mowed Shira's lawn as well. So to this day, police have never said who tipped them off or what tipped them off about where to locate the gun and about who to trace the gun back to. But authorities obviously got a great tip because this tip led them to the killer. And this tip gave them enough evidence to now move in on Billy Turner. Authorities indicated that they arrested Turner in a convenience store for the premeditated first-degree murder of Lorenzen Wright. Shira Wright was later arrested in Riverside, California, where she had made her first court appearance, surprisingly confined and handcuffed to a wheelchair for unknown reasons. No one knows why she was in a wheelchair. Authorities had learned that since Lorenzen's death, Shira had actually been married, divorced, and married again. So Shira was now on her third husband. She was married to a man who was a record producer and lived in California. Shira was indicted on 3 counts. So from the evidence that they had, investigators were also able to put Shira at the scene of the crime, and they listed this in Shira's indictment as well. Along with this, they listed the 3 counts that Shira was going to be charged with, which were first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, which the conspiracy count alone can carry anywhere from 15 to 16 years in prison. And guys, get this, the last count that was listed on Shira's indictment was criminal attempt murder in the first degree. I don't think I had ever heard that count before, so I needed to look that one up myself because it wasn't first-degree murder or conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. It was criminal attempt with murder in the first degree. And the reason why they charged her with this as well was because police had enough reason to believe that Shira had made multiple attempts in the past to actually kill her husband before, and those attempts had failed. So listed on the indictment was also an unidentified co-conspirator. And authorities were asked about this in the press conference, and they stated that they were not going to reveal that person's name nor speak on the third co-conspirator at all. And some believe that this unnamed person could have been the one to give officers the tip on where to locate the murder weapon, because that was just such a specific pond or meadow in Mississippi. So people kind of believe that this third unnamed person is probably receiving some type of immunity for leading them to the murder weapon. Once Shira and Billy were prosecuted and taken to court, they both maintained their innocence and stated that they had nothing to do with the murder of Lorenzen Wright. Lorenzen's mother also came out and made a statement stating that if Shira was found guilty, that she would fight for custody of Lorenzen's 4 children. And I say 4 children because at this point, so many years had went by that only 4 of their children were still minors. So for 2 years, Shira and Billy Ray were in and out of court. And finally, on July 25th, 2019, Shira Wright pleaded guilty to facilitation of murder in the first degree, and Shira was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Shira Wright must at least serve 30% of her sentence, and she'll get credit for time that was served, because I think by this point she was already in prison for about 2.5 years before she was found guilty and her sentencing came about. I found this part just so interesting and crazy. As early as late 2026, Shira can be eligible for parole. And I'm assuming this is because they're taking into consideration the 2.5 years she already spent in prison. They're taking into consideration perhaps good behavior. I looked it up and it said that she's not doing anything bad or crazy in jail. Remember, she was a minister before she went to jail. So maybe that's going to be for a good time served as well. Needless to say, both of Lorenzen's parents, his mother and his father, stated that they will be at every parole hearing that Shira tries to attempt to get out of prison and vouch for their son and say that she needs to spend the rest of her life behind bars. I can just imagine what Lorenzen's parents and his children are going through at this point, especially his children, because, you know, it's hard to believe that a parent has murdered another parent, but I could just imagine what their entire family was going through and is continuously going through to this day.
Thank you, sir. Cheryl, I want to thank you for giving me my grandchildren. That's what I want to thank you for. But I want you to unlock them so I can visit them, so they can see their grandma. Because Sophia keep calling. She wants to come make chicken and dumplings. She wants to come in just to make chicken and dumplings. I want her to come. And the twins going to be playing basketball near us now, so we want to see them too. We want them to be talking. Let them know we didn't do anything to them. We didn't lie to them or anything. We just love them. We just want to see them. That's all. I want you to get the kids and let them know we didn't do anything to them. We love them. We want to see them. You know, Trail does the same. Hey, you know, Trail does the same. You know how the baby triplets for like, what, 3 months? That Trail is the same age. He misses his nephews. And Trail finna be 20, and they're not going to see him be here at 20. But I want you to call and let them know it's okay to talk to your grandma. Grandma still love you. That's all I want my grandkids. That's it. I just hate what happened to my child. But he left nice looking kids here for his grandma. So they want to see me like I want to see them. Lamar wants to see me. Sophia wants to be dressed in, dumplings. You know how I let her cut them out with a piece of cut. And she want to do that. And I'm ready for them to come back to home with their family. Because I miss them.
Am I able to respond to that?
Mr. Gangle, you want your client to say anything at this point, sir?
No, Ms. Wright has nothing to say at this time.
Ms. Marion, again, I want to thank you.
All right, thank you.
Your family, I want to thank you for your patience. I want to thank you for allowing the legal process to run its course, Ms. Marion. And I hope, and I know what has happened to you and your family, your son, can never be undone by anything that these courts do. But I hope it brings you some closure. And I hope it allows your family to continue to heal. And again, thank you for your patience, and we'll deal with Mr. Turner's case in September, ma'am. Thank you all for being in court today.
Billy Ray, the man accused of pulling the trigger, originally set to go to trial in September of 2019, but his trial got recessed so that his lawyers could overlook new evidence that was presented in trial by prosecutors, I'm assuming. So in February of 2020, Turner was given a trial date of October 26, 2020, so later on that year. Turner's trial then got postponed for a couple of more years, and I'm assuming this was probably due to COVID. If his trial date was set for October 26, 2020, I know COVID hit in May. So this probably postponed his trial for another 2 years. So now finally in March of 2020, a jury convicted Turner of first-degree murder. And at his sentencing in July, so a couple of months later of 2022, he was sentenced to life in prison plus 41 years. So Billy Ray Turner will never see the light of day again and will spend the rest of his life behind bars. It was also interesting, I meant to mention this earlier, but when she was asked by investigators, she actually recanted her statement, stating that he left her house with a box of drugs and an unknown person that night.
And I never said box of drugs. You can write that because that's not true.
What did you say?
I just said he had a box.
And they added the part about the drugs, I guess. Did you tell them the first time that he was at your house and he left with somebody that you didn't know?
I never told them who he left with because I didn't see that. And so that would be an untrue statement.
There are accounts that you told the police a few weeks before this that 2 or 3 guys came up to the house looking for him and they had guns. Do you remember that? Or?
No, I don't remember. I mean, I try not to even think about things like that.
She recanted that and said, I never said that. Like, I don't know where they got that from, but I never said that. That's 2 very interesting things to say. An unknown person in a box of drugs, but needless to say, Shira is behind bars for now, and I hope she stays there. So yeah, that's pretty much going to be it for this case. That is the very unfortunate murder of Lorenzen Wright. Some people say that Shira's motive in this was to get money. She got $1 million and then blew it in a year. I just don't understand how you blow so much money. But for now, at least Lorenzen has justice. Like I said, Billy Ray will be in prison for the rest of his life. And we'll just have to see what Cher decides to do in 2 years. She's going to try to parole out. We don't know. But like I said, I'll keep you guys updated. I was thinking too, like, I wonder if she would have never put the book out if people would have been on to her. But honestly, that's really not why people caught on to her. It was because someone told them where to find the murder weapon and they just so happened to connect it to Billy Ray Turner. So I kind of don't think that the book has anything to do with her being arrested. I think that if she would have put out the sequel, The Whole Nine, which I'm curious as to wonder if she is still going to put that out. But I do think that if she would have put that out, investigators would have been on her more because she probably would have added a little bit more detail on how Lorenzen's murder happened. So much detail that only the people who were involved in his murder would know. Like, I feel like she probably would have like slipped up somewhere. But please leave a comment and let me know what you guys think Cher's true motive was. Do you think it was the children's $1 million insurance policy? Do you think it was to get back at him for all the times that he had cheated on her? Let me know you guys' thoughts on this case down below in the comments and we can discuss it a little bit more. So with that being said, that's going to go ahead and wrap up today's True Crime with Crystal Wednesday video. Thank you guys again, as always, for tuning in and clicking on another video. And I hope you guys were educated on Lorenzen Wright's case and his story. I will catch you guys next week for another true crime video. Until then, I hope you all stay safe out there.